Fear of a Flat Planet. I just like the title. Try this as an image. Take Einstein's surface and draw a grand circle around it, and see it as a flat blanket, grand circle, and draw parabolic lines. So draw lines that are at 90 degrees from the circumference and join it to another point. It's also at 90 degrees. So you're always putting bends in, and that's Euclidean geometry, all 5 postulates. Okay, simple disk with those lines on it. Now take Einstein's idea of the image of mass curving space-time and take the Earth and place it at the center, and place the center of the bending at the center of the planet. And now you can allow that planet to fall into the blanket and curve the space-time into the center with the Earth. And now each of the you see the sun on the outer edge of the circumference of the grand circle is the breaking of the wave, and that the moon is the bending of the light, and the bending of the light, the emitting of the light. What we can't see is the precessional axis, but we can observe everything else. So place the sun at the boundary, and it's a flat disk standing up. So there's the blanket now. Come back, you've got the Earth sinking in the middle of the blanket of the grand circle. Look at the grand circle, zoom right in, and you'll find a place where the wave is breaking. So there's a hole. So the circumference comes up and does a loop, and then moves forward. So there's a step in that wave break, and then there's a void there. So the roller of the wave goes a whole circle before it carries on. So that defines the thickness now of a dot point, of a part of Euclidean geometry. So here's a part. A dot point is defined as the smallest diameter circle you can possibly have on a grand circle, which defines its thickness. So the height of the grand circle, but that dot point has no thickness. It's just the surface area, the square. And that's a vacuum. So a vacuum has been created there. That vacuum goes to the center of the planet. So now you can see the planet go into the center. Remove the planet, just leave it there as a sphere, and look at the center. The vacuum energy arrives at the center. Now this is all twist unraveling, so that is twisting. So all the mass of the wave, the momentum of the actual surface of the water, which is the blanket of Einstein's blanket, it's of water, and you're bending the water as a pond skater bends the water as he walks on the water, as Christ walks on the water. So you're bending the surface tension. So the bending, the twisting force of the surface turning inside out, which is what surface tension is. The surface of the water turns inside out for one rotation nearly. That twist has to resolve itself, and so the twist resolves itself here with the vacuum energy that's created. So a void is created, so that's fine. A twist can now occur in that void around nothing, but that means that the center of rotation of bending is around nothing, and therefore it has no inertial frame of reference. So that doesn't work. So it needs to do a final piece of work, which is create the frame of reference, and so it creates the North Pole, which is a vortex. So that the spindle of the arm of the radius of the grand circle is now doing work, creating a vortex of a standing wave above as a North Pole, and it's going really fast, so it's just twisting. That's two forces of tension and bending. They've split, but they're twisting together before they break away from each other. So it's a vortex that's breaking at the top. Yeah, Gabriel's horn shape, a trumpet shape of the North Pole in terms of force vector, but it's really tiny again because that's a tiny spindle. So it's a tiny axis, but it's actual entity now, created from two forces and turbulence. Turbulence is the higher energy state, so that the grand circle motion is laminar on the surface. The roller of the wave and the fold of the spindle, where the wave rolls around, creates a fold. That fold is expressed at the top of the vortex, at the center of the vortex, referencing the center of the of the 0 point part which is describing the circumference in motion as it rolls around. And so it's the whip motion is then created. So you get a 2 pi and then a pi pi, defining the center point of the whip, the crack in the whip. And at the center, that's where light is then created with the sacred geometry 6/5, circle, pentagram, hexagon. And from that, the entire sacred geometry is built. And those are the 3 pi's. Pi elastic, the outside circle, pi real, and pi natural. So pi real, I've said 22/7. So I'm just going to get this right in my mind. So pi real is 22/7. It's real things. We build things with a real rational number, and therefore that's pi real. Yeah. And that's the golden ratio one, and that's the one that builds the 6. So the pi natural is the 5, the magic one, which is the pulsatile one. So that's 3.144. So the biggest one is pi natural 3.144, golden ratio one, that builds the Fibonaccian one from the hexagon, and it's the 5/6 and the 6/5 spring-loaded mechanism. So now you've built the whole pi tensor. You've got a north pole of an actual entity that exists because it's turbulent. Turbulence is the higher energy state. It creates a surfactant surface on the surface of the outside of the vortex. Turbulence is a higher energy state, doing more work. So what work does it do? It creates gravity. It attracts, it contracts. So when the rigid body moment comes, the elasticity of the turbulence is what takes up the rigid body motion. Yeah, so it's a rigid body. It should, if it contracts on itself, it should blow up. But it doesn't blow up because it creates its own energy of elasticity inside. So there's a bit of give at the center, which pulses. So at black hole density, when you're clamping this thing shut, it's actually pulsing because of the rotation of the twist at the center. It makes it pulse. Elasticity is created by turbulence. And when you've got massive infinite power, which is then created from this, because there's no end to this system, it creates itself. It's created now, its own frame of reference has been created right at the center, at the time particle. So now you can move the actual time particle mechanism, all that stuff, the engineering, to the center of this mechanism of the pi tensor, and then just draw Saturn, a sphere with a ring around it. There's the 2 frames of reference. And then go, oh, I see. So that Saturn represents the stability of the universe now, massive. It doesn't have to be that big. If we behave properly, we can bring the center of the universe right down here to the surface of the Earth, and it will go flat. Because that surface that I described of a grand circle, flat, spindle, folded wave, dot point, void, 0 squared, circle on the end, describing a circumference about an inertial frame of reference, creating the North Pole, and then creating a magnetic monopole. So there's the duopole. It's got a north and a south. And the south is merely then the c squared, the ellipse of the water molecule that's created, the drop of water, the teardrop that's created, that hangs from that c squared, from that circumference. Can you see? So you've got North Pole, that's all you got. North Pole at the moment, circumference of a pond of water, gravity effect, Einstein's curving space surface. But hanging from that, mass, energy, weight, just sheer Newton, hanging from the circle is a drop of water, literal water. And so the water is then sucked up into the vortex. And so it's the motion of water, the wave breaking of water never breaks. It breaks down to this infinite scale, creating itself, creating more water, creating life, proving that water exists and creates itself, so that it's eternal. There's no Big Bang. Water is eternal because it creates itself from energy. And then the elasticity that occurs in that turbulence just gets more and more complex as there's the motion of stable decoherence and unstable coherence. So unstable coherent periods can be maintained through bringing awareness to the moment. If you're aware that you're existing in stable decoherence, you choose to exist in unstable coherence, and suddenly everything makes sense. And the world, so there's the circle and there's the drop of water. What happens is, if behavior of the center is poor, if there's poor behavior of the bearing at the center, if it's behaving badly, the bearing has just got gremlins, it's rattling. It's going to make, those trumpet noises are the sound of the bearing screaming that you've heard. This mysterious noises in the back. That's the bearing making a noise, behaving badly. And it's literally a badly behaved bearing. We have to make it, train it to be well behaved, and that's just through human sexual behavior. We follow our natural cycle, monthly cycle, and we're in a month of a 28-day period, we have a period of unstable decoherence and stable coherence. We swap them over. We can make stable coherence. We're choosing to be unstable in the decoherence and stable in the coherence. We control the whole mechanism. So that you can see what now we got the two planets, the round one, the spherical one, because what happens is when the planet bearing behaves badly, the center gets big, the mass gets too big, it drops, and so the Einstein surface that we had at the grand circle, the mill pond, the center is now collapsed. It's a beam, and it collapsed down to a sphere, but it's stable as a sphere, but it's stable decoherence. So by understanding it and understanding why the bearing's behaving badly in terms of our sexual morality, it's simple. And what we have to do is go celibate, and then we'll build for the big O in 28 days, cycle to the moon, big O, 28 days. It's an experiment. Don't have sex. Depornography the planet. We'll set up for the big O, big orgasm, and I'll show you the power of the human orgasm. And you'll experience it properly. And you'll go, oh, I see. If only we had that training manual at the beginning. Well, now you've got it now. So you've got no fucking excuse. So that we go like that. So the surface that I built, that theoretical surface, the mill pond, the wave, and the North Pole, is the planet that we then live on. The flat Earth with an ice wall around it, because the ice wall is, you get it, the rigid body. The universe is ice on the surface of less than particle thin, subatomic equator. It's just force, the sheer force flow on the outside is cold, and it's ice. And so we exist on the outside of the surface at the bottom of this sphere. It's where we exist as in the firmament of a bubble with this little planet system built up. But we experience it at the center. And then we'll see it'll be huge. And we'll evolve. That's what evolution is. Periods of stable decoherence, stability, but boring, and then fast, unstable coherence. So if you can recognize what's happening, you can choose the unstable coherence, preferring it to the stable decoherence, and you get a flat planet. And you find that life is eternal and you live forever. And that all this is a lie, this is death. We're here to learn. So that when we can work this out, we're here to learn. We've now learned. We can go back to the flat planet and never leave it. And we'll rule it. But the demons and the entities and any voices you've been hearing that are telling you opposite, telling you otherwise, they're lying. They're hiding the truth from us, because all we got to do is control our sexual behavior, and we will rule over all the evil entities. They will be under our domain. So we don't have to be frightened. Don't be frightened. Be brave. Now is the time to be human. Really human. And step into the light. Don't be afraid. Have no fear of the flat planet. It's going to be more glorious than you can possibly imagine. Follow the Rebel King.